In today's episode of Today in World War II, December 1st, a sham government is set up by the Soviets across the Finnish border. A German heavy cruiser continues its rampage against British shipping. A macabre report by an SS officer about just how many Jews his command killed in certain countries. The United States Air Force in Britain gets a new commander. And finally, the world's best fighter makes its debut in the European theater. Let's get started. All right, so on December 1st, 1939, in the Winter War taking place between the Soviet Union and Finland, the Soviets tried a tried and true ploy. They had liberated, quote unquote, liberated a Finnish village called Terijoki just across the border, and they set up one of their Finnish communists. His name was Otto Kuusinen, and he declared that it was legitimate government of Finland, and he called upon the Finns to rise up and rebel against the bourgeois leadership of the country. You know, the freely elected democratic uh, nation, by the way, government. And so they felt like this is a little bit naive. And frankly, it happens so often in history where an authoritarian who decides to invade a weaker country, a democratic country, they believe their own propaganda that the country is corrupt, that the workers are suffering, and they are just itching for the chance to rise up and overthrow their rich political masters and welcome the Soviet Union with open arms. You know, we have residents of that with Hitler, you know, and different times. And frankly, I hate to say this because I'm an American. You know, when we invaded Iraq on the second invasion, not the Gulf War, but after that, the military planned their invasion thinking that the Iraqis would greet us with open arms and help us to overthrow Saddam Hussein. They were shocked when they realized that the Iraqis felt like we were the invaders and that needed to be resisted at all costs. This is what happens when people don't learn the lesson of history. Okay, so same. By the way, same thing happened when the Russians invaded Ukraine. They thought it was going to be a walkthrough because people would welcome them. Well, they didn't welcome. They fought like tigers, and they continue to fight to this day. So getting back to the Winter War between Finland and the Soviet Union, uh, they really believed that the Finnish working class would rise up, and that would help them with the conquest of Finland. And at the very minimum, they would not fight in the army and not resist the Soviets. Well, as we're going to see as we go through every single day, almost every day now for the next 2 or 3 months, I'm going to give you reports about how the Winter War went, and you'll see that the exact opposite happened. That in fact, the Finns fought like tigers, and the working class supported their government, supported their country, and had wanted nothing to do with communism. So on this date, that's what Mr. Kuusinen, at least that's what he tried to do. It didn't work, but it was a notable event on today on 1939. What would be notable for you would be to subscribe to my channel and click the little bell that states that you want to be notified when I drop these videos. Look, I'm dropping these videos every single day. So you want to be notified that it's ready and you can watch it, because I don't know about you, but I get kind of thrilled doing these videos every day because it's almost like I'm living it as I'm listening to someone on the radio back in 39 to 45 who's telling me about what's happening here, because you don't really get this perspective from many other sources. So I hope that you subscribe and click on the bell to be notified of what's going on. Okay, when my new video is dropped. On November 1st, 1940, the German heavy cruiser Admiral Scheer sank another British ship, this time off Cape Verde Islands, off of the Iberian Peninsula. Eight people were killed, 14 people survived. And if you've been hearing me or watching me in the last few days, I've been talking about the Admiral Scheer, and it was, wreaking havoc in the shipping lanes, taking off these lone British ships that were making their way from the colonies to the UK to keep that trade going, to keep that lifeline of supplies going. And if you want to contrast this to what happened a year before, those of you who are following along, you saw that the British put together a task force that was going after the pocket battleship Graf Speer and about some, going after surface raiders, merchant ships with guns that were picking off lone ships. And you might wonder, well, why is this not happening? Why did they do the same thing now? Why did the Admiral Scheer have a green light to do this stuff? Well, it's because of the fact that the Germans occupied France in 1940 and the Battle of Britain was going on, and the Royal Navy still could not assume that the Germans were not going to invade, so they had to keep their home fleet close to their vest, close to the home islands, and heavy cruisers like the Admiral Scheer took advantage of this. In this case, they picked off another ship, the British ship Tribesman, and more people died. What I would love for you to do right now, and you listen to me do this every week, every day, so I'm going to say it again. Please like this video. It means a lot. It helps with the algorithm. Comment as well. Every comment means more people get this video that shows up in their feed, and there are more potential people who can watch this because I want to grow this channel. I'm sure you want to grow this as well because the content's good. I know no false modesty. I know I do good content here. Okay. So on today's date, on December 1st, 1941, a very macabre, very tragic report was filed from an SS officer. His name was SS Standartführer Jager. He submitted a report this day. He was the head of the Einsatzgruppe, that was the SS execution squads that would come in behind the German Wehrmacht after they came in and occupied territory. They would move on to conquer more territory, and then the Einsatzgruppen would do the dirty work of rounding up Jews, gypsies, homosexuals, communists, political commissars, whoever was on the blacklist, they were going to be liquidated. That's what they did. And of course, the Jews were at the top of that list. And what fascinates me about the Nazis in general was how openly and how meticulously they documented all of their murder and all their crimes against humanity. In this case, the Standartenführer Jager reported that the SS soldiers under his command in Lithuania killed 99,804 Jews in up to that date. And at the same report, he also, as a bonus, I suppose, he gave his report that when they went to Minsk in Belarus, they killed 620 males, adult males, 1,285 adult females, 1,126 children, and 19 communists. But with the exception of the 19 communists, the rest were all Jews. And, it's hard as someone who grew up in a democracy and a free country to understand how anybody could voluntarily shoot children, not to mention women and children, men and women, but children especially. And it just pains me to see the rise of fascism that's happening in the world now, and authoritarianism. And I really have a lot of fear about what the future holds. But in the meantime, we just have to go back to reports like this to see that the monster was there then, and we have to do everything we can to stop the monster from coming out again. Now, on December 1st, 1942, the United States 8th Air Force in Great Britain received a new commanding officer. Carl Spaatz got the job originally, and he came over. Didn't last very long because if you think about this, the Pearl Harbor started a little over a year previously, and they had to get organized and start getting the command, the troops over there, the airmen, the Air Corps, the technicians, the mechanics, the pilots. They had to ferry the planes over. So Eaker had a very difficult, Spats had a very difficult job in doing that. And now that they were getting to the point where the 8th Air Force was going to start doing real missions, albeit mostly in France or mostly at the very eastern or the western edges of Germany, because the Air Force wasn't built up yet to go deep into Germany in 1942, and not until later in 43. They decided to give that to Ira Eaker, and he was commanding that initial attack process. So a lot of these had to do with milk runs, getting experience, getting used to bombing targets, practicing their daylight bombing techniques, keeping a real tight box where each plane could use their 10 machine guns to protect each other from fighters. Because remember, at the time, the 8th Air Force, that their philosophy was they were going to bomb in daylight and they were going to go after precision targets because they had the Norden bomb sight, which supposedly they'd be able to bomb a pickle in a pickle barrel from 30,000 feet up. Well, that wasn't exactly accurate, but that was the hope anyway, and we were still in the hopium part of this bombing campaign. But on this day, General Eaker was named, and a new phase started in the U.S. daily bombing offensives that were to come in the future from England. And finally, on December 1st, 1943, the United States 9th Fighter Command aircraft finally began operations from the United Kingdom using P-51 fighters. In this case, their very first sortie was a fighter sweep over northwestern France. And wow, this is a major day because the arrival of the P-51 Mustang fighter completely changed the whole landscape of the air war in Western Europe. It was the only plane that had the range to be able to fly all the way to shoot. They could go to Poland and back from Great Britain, and they had the range to go there and back, and they had the range to be able to fight it out all the way there and all the way back. So no other aircraft in World War II had the same range and the same ability, and it could win dogfights. It was just as good, if not better, than the German Focke-Wulf 190, which was the main fighter in the 40s, 43, and 50. Not to mention the 109, but the 109 wasn't as obviously later versions of the Spitfire, the Focke-Wulf 190 on the German side, and then of course even the P-47s, as heavy as they were, they could still take on the 109s pretty easily if they use the right tactics. But the P-51 was a whole different animal. And as I remember, the bombing campaign had less to do with bombing industry out of existence because they never really did. The Germans were able to keep up production despite all the bombing. What the main benefit that the Allies got from the air war campaigns 30,000 feet above was the fact that it demolished the German fighter command. It demolished the Luftwaffe, and they were not able to operate over our troops, which meant that our troops, when they were attacking, were free from air attack, which, as we saw in the Mediterranean, really caused a lot of casualties. So that's why this is such a big deal that the P-51 Mustang finally arrived. Well, thank you very much for watching this next video. I look forward to having you see my next one tomorrow.